Welcome to First Baptist here in Hamilton. Glad you all could join us tonight. And I'm very thankful for Brian DeRoshi and Jason Murray. Brian is from the Hamilton Police Department, Jason from the Hamilton Fire Department. And they're going to just help us as churches think about issues of safety, both from police and kind of the fire perspective. So we're grateful not only, of course, that they're both here with us tonight, but for the fact that they are spending time keeping our community safe. So I'd like to begin today with just a prayer that God would bless our time together, and just thank you for Brian and Jason and all those who are working hard for our community. Let us pray. God, we thank you that Brian and Jason are both here to lend their expertise to us. We pray that you help us to make wise decisions for the churches represented here. And we thank you for Brian and Jason and all of our community fire and police officers who just work so hard. When there's danger or a problem, they're there to help. We thank you so much for that, Lord. We pray for this in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Amen. And we'll have Brian go first, and then Jason.
All right. Actually, I do have some slides on here on like evacuation, fire type ones, so you can jump in and we can tag it. So let me first begin by introducing myself. Who here is associated with this church or from another church? Anyone from another church here tonight? Perfect. So where are you from?
Chittenango, New York.
Chittenango.
Yeah.
Wow, you came a ways.
Oh, it's worth it. You're here.
And which church in Chittenango?
First Baptist.
First Baptist in
Yep.
Chittenango, and all of you together right here?
Yep, you're together.
And all the way in the back corner trying to hide? Where? Okay. Thanks for coming. And is there anyone else from an, okay.
Well, Park United Methodist, I don't know if anybody is.
You gotta speak up.
Park United Methodist Church,
United
right?
Methodist? Oh,
Yeah.
Park, just down the street.
oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm getting to the age where I'm hard of hearing, hard to see, and a lot of gray hair, so. But it looks like I'm in good company. All right. Let me give you a little bit of background of who I am, where I come from, and how I got here. So I started in law enforcement all the way back in the early 90s. I started with the town PD just north of Syracuse, and then made my way into the state police where I worked a total of 30 years in one day. I had to do that one day just to say I had more than 30. Retired 2 years ago. Started with Hamilton, the Village of Hamilton Police, about a year and a half ago or so, but I don't work a lot, just a little bit here and there to help out with their shifts. And some of the details like this, because when I was in the state police, I used to go out and do a lot of work I was in the Office of Emergency Management, where we did a lot of community outreach and discussions on the topic we're going to be talking about here tonight. In my personal life, myself, my wife, and I, we've been married for, oh boy, I'm glad she's not here. I'm doing the math, hang on, it'll be 34 years. So, yeah, quite a while. And I have 4 boys and 2 grandchildren. So that's my personal life, but then most importantly, I as well know Christ as my Savior. I'm a member of Open Door Baptist Church in New Woodstock, and have been there for, 24 years it's been. So that's the most important piece I think of tonight. So I'm glad that I can come out here and talk to you, discuss a little bit about church safety and emergency preparedness. This is an important topic. It's one where sometimes it's tough to talk about because we sometimes don't want to think that this could happen in our own church. Things of violence or destruction, but sadly it can. So we have to be prepared. So with that in mind, I think I've already asked Pastor Bill if they had a church security team here. We talked a little bit about that. What about the other churches that are here? Do you have a church safety team already in place at this time?
We're working on it.
Okay.
We do have protection, but we're working on how to develop this.
To get it organized
Yeah.
and put together and okay, good. How about in the corner, Becker? No? Okay.
Not really, very, very informal.
Very informal. And you know what? Informal's better than nothing. I just want you to be aware of that, okay? And I'm not here saying, hey, you got to do this tomorrow, get this team together. No, it's baby steps and working up to it. But as we go through these slides, you're going to see that I am very much on the proactive side of things as opposed to the reactive side. We want to avoid it from occurring, not just practice, learn, and train to respond to it. We want to prevent it. That's where we need to be. Okay? And I know that there was one other. Does your church have a safety team established?
Starting tonight.
Starting tonight. All right. All right. We're all on the same page here.
Proactive.
Proactive. There you go.
So in the church that I belong to, we have established a safety team. It's quite organized. We have probably, I think, somewhere it's around 15 on our safety and security team. Half of that team have pistol permits, concealed carry. I'm not saying you have to do that. Some churches say, no, we're not going to do that. Others are saying, yes, we accept that. That's a decision that you have to make as a church body and figure out, is this what we want to do or not what we want to do. We have just made that decision that we're going to do that, mostly because I think we have 4 police officers in our church, and if you have ever told a cop to leave his gun at home, he's probably not coming. So, so again, we just have it in place for that reason. If I don't move this, I'm going to trip over it. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about a few things, and you can go down through the agenda. I'm not going to read the whole thing because PowerPoint will put you to sleep. If you fall asleep, I won't pick on you. I may point you out, but I won't pick on you. All right. So tonight we have to look at a few things, and one of the hardest things to wrap our mind around is, okay, how do we create a safe environment, but still be a friendly and welcoming environment? We're a soft target. Churches are soft targets because we typically leave our doors open and we welcome everybody in. So we have to balance between making sure that we're being warm and inviting, but yet safe and secure. And that's a tough place to be, but we'll talk about how you can do it. All right, so we're going to talk about some fire evacuations. We have the fire department here that will jump in at that point. Active threat response, ALICE it's called. There's all kinds of different trainings out there. Run, hide, fight, avoid, deny, defend. All of these different types of training that's out there to teach you how to respond to active events. We're going to talk about some of those tonight. They all mean the same thing, just have different terms to go along with what they're trying to teach. And we're going to talk about medical emergencies because that's important. Do you have a nurse or do you have somebody who's trained in CPR, AED to be able to respond to a medical emergency? Because remember at the beginning of this, it's not just about security, but it's about safety and preparedness. It's part of preparedness. All right, and then severe weather and sheltering events, child protection, as well as check-in, check-out. Do you currently have any kind of risk management or or those type of programs in place for your volunteers, people who are working with our children? That's an important piece. I know that the church, and again, I'm going to keep referring back to the church that I go to because that's what I know best. We have a 6-month policy. You join the church, you can't work with the children for 6 months until that 6-month period is over. That gives us a chance to really get to know that person to make sure that they're going to be safe with the children. And then usher and greeters, the roles and responsibilities, which are very important. And then all the way to the bottom, do you train, do you practice? I know that there was, when we were having dinner, there was talk about, there was a fire event here where it sounds like one of the ballast in a light had overheated and was an event. So do you practice for those kind of events? So our purpose in all of this is to protect life and promote a safe environment. Balancing that hospitality and safety. It's a difficult piece, but a doable piece. We want to make sure that we practice, prepare, and partner with local responders, what we're doing tonight. But ultimately, what is the purpose of the church? I love coming out to church because I can throw scripture in there. When I go out to other public groups, I can't put scripture in my PowerPoint, but I can here. So I believe that Ephesians 4:12 really spells out the purpose of the church. So we have to be mindful of that. So general safety and situational awareness. First of all, know your exits. And I don't care if you're here, out at a restaurant, out in a movie theater, doesn't matter where you are, know how you're going to get out. As we sit in here, I see exit signs, 3 of them. Know them, no matter where you go. If you're not going to stay in the fight, you have to get out of the fight. You have to have a way to get out and to go. Know what direction you're going to go. So know every exit point of your church or wherever you are at all times. Fire department will definitely be teaching you that as well. Always have a way out. So very important. Do you know where your AEDs are, your first aid kit, or your utility shutoffs? Let's just say you needed to turn the power off to the building that one day when the ballast was melting in the light. Do you know how to do that? If you don't, it's something you want to write down so that you do know. Encourage, see something, say something. So very important. A lot of church violence comes from domestic violence related situations outside of the church. If you have a church member or visitor who may be going through something at home or with a family member, encourage them to report that to the pastor so at least they have some knowledge to be able to know who the person is, whether there's an order of protection in place or they may become violent. It's really important. So you need to encourage your membership and your visitors to be able to be open about those types of situations. Visitor flow. Greeters. Are you trained to observe and report concerns? If it's 85 degrees out and you have a visitor showing up in a long, heavy trench coat, does that person stand out? Yes. If you have a visitor showing up and they're carrying a massive bag, does that stand out? Yes. Look for those things. You often have to ask yourself, does this person belong in this place at this time? Meaning, do they fit the profile of somebody, and I hate to use the word normal, but under normal conditions, do they stand out? And if they're wearing a heavy coat in the middle of summer, that stands out. Things like that. Does it appear that maybe they have a weapon on, bulging at the side of their shirt or anything like that? Just be mindful of that. Their demeanor. How are they acting when they come in? Are they asking you questions about security? Sometimes they will. If they are, all kinds of red flags. Okay, something to be alert and aware of. But your greeters need to know what they're looking for. And I will say that just greeting somebody often will stop whatever was going to happen. Most individuals, if they're looking to come out to either cause some sort of disruption, and that's what you would deal with the most, disruption or violence, they don't want to be challenged. They don't want you coming up and talking to them. As soon as you do that, sometimes it throws them off. And it's a positive thing. So be friendly, greet. And then again, know your building. What rooms lock? If you needed to lock a bunch of kids into a room for safety, which ones have locks on them? Know that. Lights and the lighting. Are your parking lots well lit at night? Things like that. Start thinking about limiting the access during service, monitoring a single point of entry. And this one, a lot of churches don't like to do this. They like to keep all of their doors open during services. I like single point of entry when the service starts, and monitored by someone from your usher group or your greeters or security team. That way, if somebody comes in, you can assist them. Usually it's a visitor. They may not know where to go. You can assist them where they need to go. But other times, it may be somebody coming in either to be disruptive, or they may be coming in to cause some sort of a violent act, and you need somebody at the door to be that first line of defense. So going to that single point of entry, to me, is a good thing. Years ago, when I used to work with schools, school buildings left all their doors open. I'm sure, Mark, probably most of you, when you went to school, the doors were wide open. Over the years, they've closed them all up, locked them all up, and now our schools are secure with a single point of entry for one purpose, so they know who's coming and who's going. I'm not saying our churches have to go to that level, but we certainly want to know who's coming in the middle of our service. So fire evacuation, maybe I can, I don't know, I'm throwing you under the bus here, but did you want to talk a little bit about this, or do you want me to keep going?
Keep going.
All right, yeah, you know, I would love to trade spots, you can get up here and, so evacuate, if the fire alarm goes off, and I'm guessing you have a monitored fire alarm system here? Yeah. So if the fire alarm goes off, the first thing I want you to do is remember we talked about situational awareness? You need your head on a swivel. Why did the alarm go off? It's always the first thing you should be asking yourself. If there's no smoke or no fire, I want you to, and you can plug your ears for a second, I want you to slow down a little bit on your evacuation. Because it may have went off because somebody pulled the pull station and they're trying to lure you into an area. Now I know that sounds kind of crazy and you're like, it would never happen here. Well, I'm going to show you a church that's in the absolute middle of nowheres that unfortunately 26 of their members were shot and killed. And they were in the middle of nowheres, and I can guarantee you they said it would never happen here. So we have to be mindful of this, okay? So if the fire alarm goes off, I want you to evacuate when it's safe to do so. You follow your primary exit routes, but like I said before, know every exit, especially your secondaries. If you come out and a primary exit is blocked for whatever reason, know another route. Now, there was one church situation where individuals showed up and they actually chained the exit door in the back of the church. Nobody noticed this, so as everybody was trying to leave out that door, they couldn't get out. Know your exit points. They have to revert to another exit. So know how you're going to get out. So know your primary and secondary routes. Designate fire, well, we call them fire wards, that's kind of a big term, but I would just say your ushers to sweep and confirm that the rooms are all clear. You don't want to evacuate the building and suddenly realize, hey, we're missing a child from the nursery, right? That's embarrassing. So make sure that those areas are swept and are all clear. So where are you going to have your assembly point? You probably haven't even talked about this. As everybody leaves, where is one place where everybody can assemble to make sure that everyone's accounted for? So think about that, what your outside rally point would be. And your off-site, if necessary, if you get outside and it's really cold, probably your vehicles, but your vehicles may be blocked in, so you may just be stuck in them. But what other building close by could you go to if you needed to? And assigned accountability rules, who checks what and accounts for everybody, and that especially goes for the nursery. Okay, so those, like most adults, they can figure it out for themselves. Kids do this in schools all the time, so they have an idea of how to evacuate and what to do. The little ones, they know. They count on us to make sure that they're safe. So nursery is a very key point to make sure that we make sure that everybody is out. So if the alarm goes off, sounds the alarm, make sure, even if the alarm goes off and you're like, yeah, somebody's, they'll call 911 themselves, don't trust that. Alarm companies sometimes fail. So make that call yourself if the alarm's going off, just to let them know, and lead people calmly out of the building, no running. Assist those who may be mobility impaired, and do not re-enter until it's cleared by the fire department. They're going to show up, clear the building, and then you can come back in. Try to figure it out. Okay? This is all basic, common sense stuff, but unfortunately we still have to go over it because sometimes we forget little steps, like clearing rooms, rally points, and things like that. Okay? So that's what I had on fire evacuation. Do you have more to add to that?
Sure.
Yeah, great.
All right. Thanks, that was a nice introduction. So I'm Jason Murray, for those that don't know me. I'm an assistant fire chief here in Hamilton. For my real job, I work for New York State Fire, doing code enforcement kind of stuff and fire prevention. So this is kind of what I do for work. Yeah, he hit all the big points. Obviously, we want people to evacuate, and if you look at this building specifically, you've got stairs involved, right, because everyone's upstairs. That's gonna take some time, especially if you have those people that are, maybe mobility impaired, so, they're gonna need to be assisted, and that needs to start, you know, as soon, like you say, as soon as you identify that it's safe to do that, and start getting people out. Knowing those other exits, I went and walked around, there's a stairwell back here, that we can send people down if there's something going on out front, but, the evacuation is probably the biggest thing. There is an alarm system in this building. I don't know everyone, you know, where you're from and what the other buildings are, but having the alarm system does give you that early warning, so hopefully that gets us moving before it's a bigger incident, right, so.
I'm assuming that we don't use the elevator during the fire.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't, but, you know, if there's people that can't get down without the elevator, try to get them in as safe of a position as possible, and then whoever is first arriving with the fire department needs to know that right off the bat, because that's gonna be our priority, is to get those folks out. So, obviously, life safety always is first for us, and then we figure out what's going on and deal with the emergency. So, yeah, I mean, the evacuation is the big part, and knowing those exits and the different ways out, whether it's, again, in the church, in another spot, could be pretty helpful, whether it's a fire or an incident of violence or something. You know, if you can kind of break from the pack and find your own way out, that may be the best way. So, just be aware of your surroundings and what's going on.
Anything to add to the EMS side of things? Do you have an AED here on site, by chance?
No,
You don't, okay.
we looked into getting one, but we don't have one right now.
Okay.
Any of the other churches, do you have AEDs available? Or, no? Okay. So one of the biggest things with the medical stuff is, you know, try to keep the person comfortable if possible. If that's not, you know, obviously they're on the floor or something like that, then that's where they should stay. You know, let's not move them until we figure out what's going on. Just think about their dignity a little bit, try to keep people away from them. If they're, you know, if you notice they're not breathing, if we can get CPR started early, that's a good thing. And again, make sure someone makes that 911 call, don't assume that it's already been done, so. Make that announcement, say, hey, somebody call 911, and then, you know, get to doing your CPR or whatever. If it's, you know, if it's bleeding, anything you can do to control the bleeding, direct pressure is always gonna be the best thing for that, so whatever you can get on there and apply pressure, if you have a tourniquet, something like that, if it's a really big, you know, big bleed of some kind, but otherwise, you know, just make them comfortable, keep people away, kind of secure that area so that the EMTs have a place to work. It's kind of tough to fight the crowd off sometimes, but, yeah, that's pretty much what
I do have a question on limiting like point of entry. What is that from the fire point of view? I know we had an issue when I worked at First Presbytery where they wanted to limit it, but the fire company said you couldn't because you needed like, you had to have like a push or something like that. So what is that?
So you have to have natural egress, but
Okay,
not
so
entry, yeah,
If
so,
it pushes, you're okay, you
Yeah.
can lock it as long as you,
yeah, you can lock it as long as you can get out of the building.
right.
You can limit access into the building, but you gotta have free access out of the building at all exits. Yeah, and usually that's a crash bar, something like, that's, yeah, good question though. Yeah, but you can't, so they're used to, there's devices that years ago used to put on those doors, like to secure them manually, like a bar and stuff like that. That's all against fire code now.
I remember seeing them in school.
Yeah, yeah.
Think back now, and like, oh, we can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore. They used to put up, you know, barriers, like a cage type barrier, so you couldn't go into a different area of the building. Yeah, those type of things now are, you gotta be able to have free egress from the building.
The only other fire-related thing I have, and I'll give it back to you, is the cooking. That's been an issue, you know, all over the place, not colleges, the homes, and churches. I mean, you guys do meals here, right? So, and I know a couple of the other churches in town do meals, so that's just something to watch, is the ventilation while you're cooking, making sure you're keeping combustibles away from the, you know, stoves and things like that, and making sure it's not left unattended, right? You put something on and, well, I gotta go run and do something, then that turns into 20 minutes on the phone with somebody and you forget what's going on. So, just keep track of your cooking stuff.
We do get into a little bit more EMS stuff and tourniquet stuff later on in the presentation, but thank you for covering that. Thank you. All right, so when we talk about situations on the violent side in churches and stuff, it's very, very rare. I don't want to make it sound like somebody next Sunday is going to be blasting into your church to cause a violent scene. When we look at percentage-wise, there are a lot of churches across our country, and very few of those churches ever see a violent incident. But just like anything else, we have to be prepared and we have to plan for it to make sure that that we're ready if it ever does show up. Again, we want to be on the side of prevention, so we want people to be reporting stuff, but sometimes we don't get that advantage. But very, very seldom do we see violent situations within our church. Now this, we probably see a little bit more often, and that's when you get that angry or agitated person coming in trying to disrupt the service for whatever reason, whether they have some sort of grievance against your church or they just happen to be in the neighborhood and are under the influence of some sort of drug or alcohol, and they come in to create a disturbance within the church. How are you going to handle that? Do you have a plan in place now for that? No?
We just tell Jody to take care of it.
And sometimes that's all you need.
That's all we need. Jody's just got to look at them and they will.
In our church, it's Tammy. If you say, Tammy, get them, they're going nowhere. Right? So yeah, sometimes that's all it takes. I get that. But de-escalation, how are we going to deal with somebody who is angry or agitated? So there's a lot going on here in this slide. I'm going to just highlight a few things down through this slide. The first one is remaining calm. In my 30 years of law enforcement, I've been on a lot of domestics, and when two people are screaming at each other, nobody hears a thing. If one person is calm, usually that's contagious, and it'll start to bring the other person down a little bit. If you've ever dealt with somebody who was really agitated and you remain calm, usually that'll help de-escalate the situation. So be mindful of that. Remain calm. Active listening. Show that you're paying attention by repeating things back to them. You can say things like, what I think I understand, or what I think you're saying is, and just repeat back to them what they're trying to explain to you. Sometimes all they want is for someone to hear them, hear why they're upset. Body language, so very important. If we come into it with our fists up, then we're already looking for a fight. If they come into it with their fists up, they're looking for a fight. So be mindful of your body language, but more importantly, be mindful of their body language. So very important. And I used to see this all the time as a road trooper. If I was talking with somebody, as soon as they tensed up and clenched their fists, I was ready because I knew there was going to be a punch coming. Happened quite often. I won't say all the time. I would hope that I would de-escalate things better than that. But often, when they clench their fist, it's coming at you, so be mindful of that. Remember, often we get focusing on the eyes and the face. That's not going to hurt you. It's the hands and what's in them that's going to hurt you. So focus on their hands and what's in them. That's the most important. I was on a call. I try to keep this PowerPoint to keep me from going on these crazy stories, but I hope you don't mind. Here goes another story. I was on a call one time. mom called, said that her son was downstairs in the basement. It was what we call a 941 situation. It was a mental health situation where a person was a threat to themselves. Went downstairs with my partner, and actually the partner, we just talked about him, Keith Perry, and I went downstairs in this basement, very dim lit. We have our flashlight out, and we're trying to talk to the person, but for like the first 3 or 4 seconds, what I didn't see was the large knife in his hand as he was laying down right up here, because I was focused here. As soon as I shined my lights up and around a little bit, thankfully I was far enough away, there was the knife. So very important to pay attention to the hands and what's in them, because that's what's going to hurt you. Okay? If they have their hands in their pocket, be mindful that they might have something in there. Do a glance over to make sure you don't see weapons along the waistband, maybe knife in the pocket or anything like that. If you have somebody who's agitated and irritated, you want to make sure you're maintaining a safe distance. So remember, body language, so very important. Clear communication, try to keep that calm, steady tone, and focus on solutions, but don't beat them up with solutions, because sometimes they don't want to hear that. They just want somebody to listen. I know that because I'm married. That was a joke. All right, so listen, all right, can we stop for a second? All right, sometimes I'm going to throw a little humor in there, all right? You have to laugh. I'm the one with the gun. You got to laugh. That's what I'm saying, all right? Thank you. All right, here we go. And that was sarcasm for sure. Clear communication, all right? Personal space, make sure that you're maintaining that distance, okay? And stay calm. I can get you these slides. If you give me an email address, I can, from whoever's here, from different churches, I can email this to you so you get it. So, our active threat response, our primary goal is to protect lives. There is no one-size-fits-all response. So what works here may not work at another church or another location. You have to customize it to what you need in the environment in which you are in. Your training options. I spoke at the beginning of this about there's so many: avoid, deny, defend, run, hide, fight. You can kind of pick one and go with it. They all mean the same thing. Run, hide, fight is like the easiest one. And when we talk about that, if you have a violent situation, the first thing you need to do is create barriers between you and the bad. Often what we see is that options are very limited. So people will get down underneath the pew, they'll duck down the best they can. If that's all you can do, that's what you do. I get that. But if you have exit points where you can get out and create barriers between you and what's occurring, absolutely do it. Assist others in that process. All right? It's kind of like when you go out bear hunting, if the gun doesn't fire, all you got to do is be able to run faster than the person you're hunting with. All right? So, don't go with that mentality. Assist and help others. Communication. How are you going to alert the congregation if something's happening? They're probably going to know pretty quickly because they're in the same environment as you. Making that 911 call. It's already been mentioned, but we have to at least get one call to 911 telling us what's going on. We don't care if we get 200, but we have to get at least one so that we get help coming. Okay? So somebody has to make that call. Here in Madison County, I believe we have texting to 911, so you can actually text 911 if you can't talk. I think every county now has that. So in your texting feature, you just put in 911 and you can actually text. They prefer not to communicate that way because it's harder to ask questions, but if you are not able to talk, you can communicate with 911 center that way. And then coordinate those roles. Teach ushers and greeters and staff what you expect them to do, what they need to do during emergencies, and how to greet people and observe. Especially visitors are great. I don't know about your church, but the church I go to, we've been seeing a lot of visitors since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and so we love that. We want visitors to come. But we also make sure that as they come in, we greet them so we know who they are, where they're coming from. We want to make sure they're there for the right reason. So then there's this ALIS, there's so many different types of programs out there, alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. This is a whole one-day training that they give on the ALIS framework. So you remember back a couple slides when we talked about knowing rooms that lock? This is another reason why you'd want to know what rooms in your facility actually lock. So if you're trying to create barriers between you and the bad and you can't get out, you want to get to a room that you can barricade or lock. And hopefully many of you. And once you're in that position, you stay there. You don't leave until law enforcement comes in and actually evacuates you out. Unless danger's approaching into your area and you have to respond to that. It may be by fighting. If you have to fight somebody who's trying to commit a violent act, you fight with everything you have. And it doesn't matter whether that's a chair, a baseball bat, you use whatever weapons you have around you to protect yourself and others from this individual who's trying to commit a violent attack upon your facility. So learning from past events, I have just two events that I've kind of highlighted tonight. There have been many, but the two that I have kind of researched and looked at a lot, the first one was the Charleston attack. This gunman attacked because it was racially motivated. He picked this location because of the congregation and the people that went there. Now you would think that a church like this would probably have pretty solid security team, but what we're going to find out is they really didn't, okay? So it was June 17th of 2015. This individual shows up to a prayer meeting, comes in. Basically, he stays, he attends his Bible study, went without any suspicion really. He just seemed like he wanted to be there. And then he goes into this tragic event where he shoots and kills 9. Since then, and remember I talked about being on the side of prevention, there's a response prevention. Since then, because of this situation now, they've increased their security measures by installing cameras, armed ushers, and enhanced safety within, and it's also enhanced the safety of many churches across the country. A lot of them have taken this one and kind of ran with what they could do to make it better. So again, because of the event, they increased their safety and security. That's in response of. Where did I say we want to be? And I'm going to say it probably 10 more times. We want to be proactive and be on the side of prevention. We want to prevent it before it happens. So this one is the one that bothered me the most, and actually got kicked off our safety team at the church that I belong to. We kind of had one, but it was informal. It was, like I said, there's like 4 cops there. We all carry guns. And so we kind of had our own informal security team, but it was small and not formed. It was November 5th, 2017. I wasn't home for this. I was out of state for work. And when I heard about this, it made me sick, and I called home and actually asked my wife not to go to church that night. I was that upset about this. I was just, because I wasn't there, I'm like, how can I protect her and my kids if I'm not there? And so this one really bothered me. So this was a domestic related situation. The shooter went in. It was a very rural church. He shot and killed 26, injured 22 during their Sunday service. This actually highlighted the importance of having a plan and how to respond to these situations. The rapid 911 notification, as well as the AED, maybe not so much, but medical readiness, tourniquets, stop the bleed kits, important in these types of situations. Often an individual won't die from the gunshot, they'll die because they sit there and bleed out. So if it's an artery bleed, we got to get that bleeding under control as soon as possible. And tourniquets are by far the best way to do it if it's on a limb. Okay, so tourniquets can go on the upper arms, upper legs. They're cheap. If you buy 5 or 6 of them, put them in your church, I encourage you all to, all the churches to get an AED, train some staff on first aid, AED, CPR. Get yourself an AED and you can put the tourniquets right with the AED kit, so it's all one package, all together, ready to go. So there's been a lot of studies on this, this church shooting. So the man opened fire at this church. I'm not going to say his name. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound after he was chased by bystanders. It was a neighbor who actually came out when he heard everything that was happening with his own rifle and started shooting at this guy, which took the attention away from the church and put it on the neighbor. The shooter then gets into his vehicle, takes off, crashes, and when he does that, he commits suicide at that point. This situation stemmed from a domestic involving this individual and his mother-in-law. So the mother-in-law attends this church, whether he knew she was going to be there or not, we don't know. I personally think that he probably didn't care whether she was there or not. He wanted to inflict pain on her. So how do you do that? Well, I'm going to go and cause damage to the thing that she loves the most, her church. And that's what he did. This goes back to the importance of letting somebody in the church know if there's some sort of domestic situation going on, if there's order protections, the pastor, the leadership team, so that they can keep an eye out for this individual if they show up. This guy actually showed up to this church for an event a few days prior to this. Seemed normal, but what he was doing, he was just scoping out the church to figure out exactly what he was going to do. Sadly, he was making threats to the mother-in-law. She did not report that to anybody in law enforcement or to the church leadership. So it's a sad situation. Another sad thing was the pastor of this church happened to be away that day. They had a guest speaker in speaking, and the pastor's daughter was one of the victims in this situation. I couldn't imagine like that. That's a tough thing to live with. So again, following this, many churches have enhanced their security measures, including training for staff volunteers to prevent these future incidents. We can train, but we can't train for everything. We can't what if. And I usually get that. When I go out and do these presentations, I get a lot of, well, what if, what if, what if. All we can do is be prepared and train the best we can and try to identify things before they happen. But we can't train for everything because as soon as we do, there's always something different that comes out. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. So again, the perpetrators, when we talk about common themes, they often, there was some warning signs, some indicators, they had some sort of grievance with the church. So it's important when they see something, say something. Lapse in background or reporting to law enforcement. Sometimes law enforcement has failed at times with not following up on things that were reported to them that they should have or didn't follow through with their investigation or actions. We hear about that often. The rapid communication, training, responding quickly to these events medically, and then again the value of a welcoming yet secure policies, partnering with law enforcement. So that's what we're doing here tonight. When I get done here, I want to walk through and check out the church and see what the layout is. I've never been in this church before, so it's a great time for me to walk through and see that. Law enforcement in your own churches, Village of Chenango, are you in the village or just outside?
Just outside.
Okay, still invite them
It goes
in.
right through our property line, but the
Yep.
village police, they use our parking lot for speeding tickets.
Oh, on Tuscarora Road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm chaplain of the police department, so.
Oh,
I get
you
a
are?
lot of-
So get them in there.
They've already been in. They know the
Perfect.
place
That's good to
really
know.
well.
That's good to know.
Sometimes they join us for worship on Sundays when they're on duty too.
That's fantastic.
It is, it's great.
I used to try to do that when I was working, but
You
seemed
always
like
get a call.
Satan would be right there in my ear with another call, right? Yeah. But yeah, that's great. And having those relationships are important. Now, I think you said you're from Earlville, right? Yeah, so you're out there. So now, you know, you have to decide, are you on the Chenango County side or Madison County side?
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. So no man's land. So nobody knows who's coming, right? I mean, I think one time when I was working, we had a shooting in Earlville. Person was shot in the center of the street, but he fell into Chenango County, so we said it's yours, not ours. Right? That's how Earlville is. So, you know, you try to reach out to I think the sheriff's office has a small satellite station there, or has a small office there.
That used to.
Yeah, used to, they don't know, yeah. So invite, you know, make a phone call, invite them in to check it out. It's good. So the more familiar they are with your facility, the better. Okay? That's what I'm getting at. Okay, so how will you respond? When we talk about these active shooter events in church, sadly, a lot of these areas, like fish in a fishbowl. Because I don't know how your sanctuary is upstairs, I haven't looked at it, but I'm guessing that there's like an exit in the front and an exit in the back. Am I mistaken or am I right?
You're right.
Okay. So if somebody comes in the back, then that's already, you're not going that way. So now it's going out the front. Often these doorways are small and it's like pouring a gallon of water through a funnel. It takes time. So you have to have it in your mind, how am I going to evacuate this area if I need to, based on the scenario. So you have to ask yourself, if somebody comes in the back, where am I going to go? All towards your front. Is it left or right or both? I don't know. We'll see when I go up there. But know that. Same thing if they come in from the front, going out the back. How are you going to get there? How are you going to get out? Our church security team, we position ourselves some people think that I just love sitting in the back row at church all the time. When I'm not working the lobby, that's where I am. We plant ourselves in different locations throughout the church on purpose, our safety team, so that if somebody comes in, there's always somebody close by. Because we practice for those disruptions of the church service where someone comes in and may create a disruption, and the first person, we want somebody to be right there to greet them and try to get them out, convince them to leave. So by placing people in certain areas of the church, you can do that. It makes sense to me, but it might be clear as mud to you. All right, good. So in these situations, you have to run first, get away from it, creating barriers, making that call, 911 call when you can, hiding out if possible. If you find a place that locks, thick walls are good. There's a difference between concealment and cover. Cover will help stop bullets, concealment won't. I can conceal myself behind this curtain over here, but it's not going to stop around. It's not going to stop any violence. But if I can get myself behind a wall that maybe is concrete or something solid, that's cover, that's good. Fight if you have to, and when you fight, you absolutely fight with everything you had, you fight to win. There is no fair fight when it's fighting for your life. So medical emergency preparedness, remember, train staff, volunteers, and CDPR and use of AED. Identify those medical responders within the congregation and let them know where your medical kit is. Okay, establish an EMS access point. So basically, if you have one point of entry that you would like them to use, let them know that. Make them aware ahead of time. And when it comes to major situation, you need a post-event reunification point and notification plan. So knowing where you guys are going to meet up if you do have to evacuate. So these are all just a quick checklist. Basically everything we talked about except for the major bleeding, which was covered by Justin, which is great. Direct pressure, tourniquets if you have it. You'll know an artery bleed if you see it. It's like a lot of blood fast. And you got about 4 minutes to get that bleeding under control. Okay? And again, record the incident details, preserve the scene for us. Severe weather and response. Remember I said this was about preparedness? This covers everything. So I remember one night when I was working, it was a crazy, crazy storm. And this village was half underwater. There was a lot of water, especially Colgate. That whole front area was like this big pond. Are you ready for that? If suddenly there's like a flash flood scenario or tornadoes. We see a lot more tornadoes now than we ever used to. It seems like we, for whatever reason. If it's in the middle of your church service, does somebody have New York Alert on your phone or something that's going to alert them to say, hey, there's a tornado warning? I know most of the time your phone's gonna go off, but not always. So somebody should be designated to have New York Alert on your phone so they can notify you if there's a major storm coming this way. And again, plan for someone to assist those who are unable to help themselves. Within this building, do you have a designated area, like if there was a major wind or tornado situation coming, do you have an area that you would evacuate to?
We have a basement.
Basement, okay, so that's good. And then the other churches, just think about that. You want to stay away from windows and large spanned rooms. So like if you have a gymnasium, that's not good. You want to get to an area that's low and sheltered without windows, the best you can. I think I got that right, Justin? Does that sound right? So going back to the child protection policy and procedures, I don't know what you have. We encourage a 2-adult rule in the classroom, in a secure check-in and check-out for the nurseries. We encourage that 2 adults in the classroom for protection of the adults, not the kids, for false accusations. It's always good to have 2 people co-teaching with little ones. Background checks for volunteers and staff. If you're able to do that, you can do cheap checks, or even if you can't afford any checks, you can go on and at least check the national sex offender registry to make sure that there's some not on that registry somewhere, especially if they're brand new to you. A clear pickup authorization list for those coming in to pick up the children, and then immediately notifying CPS, I'm going to say, for suspected abuse. All right, so I know that if there's a child being abused, we need to make notifications of that. Safety rules for our ushers and greeters. Early detection, that's what they do. They're primarily hospitality early detection. Secondary, direct evacuation, medical support responders. These are all just different things that we want them to have as safety rules. You can read it. I'm not going to read all of it. But communication is important. How do they communicate with one another? So now we're kind of getting down to our discussion points here. And these are some questions I have for you. What would your primary evacuation routes be today? Well, it's dependent upon the location of the incident, right? But let's just say, picture in your head your sanctuary and somebody comes in the back. What's your primary exit route going to be? How are you going to get out? This is a question for you, so go ahead and say it out loud.
The front right.
The front right, okay. And where's that front right going to take you? Down the stairs and out this door over here? Okay, fantastic. How many people would be, do you have in the sanctuary, say, on a Sunday service?
40.
40? Okay. So that's doable, right? Good, that's good to hear. Hopefully the other churches are thinking about that same, like how are we going to evacuate that area, given the amount of people that are in it. The church that I'm at, we would struggle to evacuate our sanctuary. We have one small exit door in the front. We have double doors in the back. Our average Sunday morning attendance is around 170. So to put 170 people out a single door, like I said, is like pouring a gallon of water through a funnel. That's why for us it's so important to have safety and security in the foyer to prevent anybody from making it into the sanctuary. So if we have a potential threat, we want to meet it at the door or in the parking lot, not allow it in. That's just what we have to do because we know it'd be so hard to evacuate out that sanctuary. Know who your medical responders are. You know, do you currently have somebody that's a nurse, AED, CPR certified within the congregation? Identify that person and let them know that you were counting on them in the event of some sort of medical emergency. Those are good things to know. You know, ask yourself, how would your ushers and greeters communicate during an active threat? It's going to be chaos, and communication is always the first thing that breaks down. Always. In any event. Whether it's a fire event, whether it's a law enforcement event, communications is always the first thing that fails. You understand that? And what barriers exist from you implementing a background check for volunteers? So sometimes, usually, it's just cost factor. But it's a good thing to put into place. So your next step of actions, and these are just recommendations, is to form a safety team, schedule a facility walkthrough, which we'll do tonight here anyway, adopt a written emergency response plan, an EAP, and then make sure your staff know it. Okay? And you can also relay a lot of that information to your congregation as well. Train some volunteers in CPR, AED, basic first aid. It's a pretty reasonable thing to do, and I'm sure you would be able to find some volunteers who are willing to go through that training. And then run a full evacuation. So a lockdown drill, maybe not so much. We're not looking to scare, okay, but definitely try do a fire drill. When on a nice Sunday during service. Our pastor hates it because we don't give him a warning. We just walk in and say, this is only a drill, but we're doing a fire drill right now. And he's always like, you know, he's 5 minutes into a service. But you can, and he hates it, but you never know when it's going to happen, right? And he doesn't either. So we just do it. And we do it at least once a year. He would like us to do it every other year, but we do it once a year. All right. So there's a lot of references and guides out there for you. There's a lot on church safety. This is some of them. And I'll leave this one up. The next slide is just questions and discussion. So questions for me, questions for just, either of us. You can fire away and ask whatever you have. Go ahead, sir.
Brian, just a quick statement. Heavily involved in the crisis committee when I was teaching school. And the one thing I think that I didn't fear it, but that I was most cognizant of was that family member that's disgruntled about something, maybe they're estranged. You have a single point of entry, but if some third grader, if that's their best friend's dad, they're gonna let him in.
Yep.
And if I had a problem with Matt's math teacher, Jason right there would let me in because he was one of my best friends down here. With him and my son hung around. And Jason would open up the door, hey, I saw you doing. And that was always my big thing, is how you get that information out to somebody, to enough people that, because not everybody has to know that there's some sort of familial dispute or anything. But you gotta get that information.
And those are challenging things, and like I said at the beginning, is you can't prepare for everything.
Yeah.
And that is always a possibility. But we can certainly put ourselves in the best state of training and understanding and keeping our facility as secure as we can. But you can't prevent everything.
And so one of our biggest gifts is that we all know each other, but that's also one of our biggest problems, is we all know each other.
Well, and the one good thing about knowing everybody is typically, like, I'm sure that it's like, there's not a lot of gossiping going on, I'm sure.
Your prayer request.
Prayer request, thank you. That makes more sense. Yes! But typically, if somebody has a grievance, they make it known.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have some idea that, for whatever reason, Josh is really upset today. And so it's kind of like, put you on, on alert that, okay, we got to figure this out. And most of the time, I can't think of any situation where any of our, I was ever worried about anyone from our congregation, committing a violent act. We've had some leave, disgruntled, but I wasn't worried about them coming back. But now in this day and age of social media, that's what scares me the most, is when they post something, if you have somebody who's already like, I hate to use this term, but off the rocker, Is this being recorded? Oh, no. Maybe we could turn it off. Like, that may send them into some sort of mindset of saying, oh, well, if you're not gonna go get revenge, I will. That concerns me more than anything else, especially like there's just so, I had this conversation earlier today with a couple coworkers about authority and respect for authority. It's like, over the last 30 years, like the respect for authority has like dwindled. It's terrible. But that's not just authority, I'm not just talking about like law enforcement. That's not what we were discussing. What we were discussing about was respecting the pastor, respecting the church, respecting each other, has gone out the window. And so we see a lot more aggression and anger, and half the time the person doesn't really know what their grievance is. They're just angry. So those are the things that we need to be mindful and watchful of. And just, again, my opinion. I have nothing to back that up other than my experience.
I have a question on churches being